Welcome back. I'm Randy Buehler. I'm here with Chris Pakula. It is time for round 2 of the Vintage Championships here at Eternal Weekend. Ken Briscoe on the right of your screen. There's Bazaar Baghdad. He has just told his opponent and everyone else he's playing Public Enemy #1, the Dredge deck, the hated. It just comes at this Vintage format from such a crazy angle that I don't think Marc Lanigra has anything in his deck that can particularly interact in Game 1 with the Dredge deck. Lanigra, the defending champion, he won this tournament last year when it was at Gen Con with kind of a Grixis control deck, Mana Drains, Force of Wills, Bobs, Jace, sort of all the usual control suspects. And yeah, he's leading Volcanic Island into Sensei's Divining Top, so
Lanigra does actually have the single most important card to have in your hand Game 1 against Dredge. He has Tinker.
Which gives him the ability to win the game quicker.
Tinker gives him an ability to win the game in the first 2 or 3 turns, either through Blightsteel Colossus or through Time Vault.
All right, well here we see Briscoe start off to the races. Bazaar Baghdad lets him draw 2 and then discard 3. When you're playing Dredge, you want cards in the graveyard, you want to start dredging, and now he's going to use that Bazaar on his turn as well. So all of a sudden he's actually doing upkeep is the way to do the timing. So those cards went into the graveyard on Lanigra's end step. Now it is Briscoe's upkeep. First draw off the Bazaar, he's going to bring back the Grave Troll and dredge 7, right? Now, sorry, 6. Now Stinkweed Imp, for the he's replacing the second draw on the Bazaar with another dredge activation.
So this game is essentially over. I know that sounds a little ridiculous, but it will be extremely difficult now for...
And Briscoe has to discard 3, so let's discard from the Bazaar.
Given that Lanigra drew no Moxes, he almost has to draw Black Lotus to win this, I think.
And now here, Narcomoeba is going to come out. Has he got anything else relevant there? I mean, the list is got Icarids, but he didn't draw any.
Well, he's got a Bloodghast.
Oh, he gets a draw phase
He's got a bridge. He's got 2 Bridge from Belows. He now has a way to kill Time Vault if he has a land in his hand, which he may not, because he milled Ancient Grudge. He's got a Narcomoeba that is in play. He's got Cabal Therapy. He's got.
I like how his graveyard is just in the battle zone, like on the battlefield.
Yeah, this is
plays a land which triggers Bloodghast to come out. The land is the second Bazaar, so now if he needs next turn, he can dredge 2, 4, 5 times next turn.
You see all the kind of techie stuff he has. He has Leyline of the Void in the main deck.
Right.
He has an Ancient Grudge in the main deck.
So activating the second Bazaar. Dredge. There's an Icarid, there's a Narcomoeba, trigger. Got to a Dread Return.
You know, as he has Dread Return and 3 Bridge from Belows?
Yes. So the kill here is Flamekin Zealot is the haste creature he needs to find, right?
Right. I mean, he may not even need it this game.
Another Narcomoeba trigger.
I mean, at this point, he would get so many zombies from...
Right, but if he wants to win this turn, he needs to find Flamekin Zealot.
Correct.
Otherwise, he can use Bridge from Below to put a bunch of 2/2s into play and say go.
Right. I'm not sure that Lanigra has any outs, because even if he were to tutor up Blightsteel Colossus at this point, I don't think that would actually...
He doesn't have a balance, right?
That would get it done.
Balance would be the out that a controlled deck could potentially have from here.
Right, but then he would just lose...
Next turn,
I think.
Yeah, you can see why the Dredge deck is super powerful when it gets its thing going. Bazaar Baghdad, it's all you need. If you have Bazaar Baghdad in your hand and you're playing this list, fill up the graveyard. This is turn 2.
Yeah, this is why the Dredge deck, this is why people devote 40% of their sideboards in Vintage for this deck, because your normal cards don't interact, and they're going to get... I mean, look at this. This is...
All right, so what did he actually do? Is this Bridge from Below generating those things? I didn't hear what he was actually doing. Oh, Cabal Therapy, of course. That makes sense.
Don't know what he named off Cabal Therapy.
It doesn't matter.
He probably named... I guess you would name either Force of Will or Tinker or Time Vault or something that would... Something that could potentially give Marc the chance to win the game on turn 2. Right. Or prevent him from casting Dread Return.
And of course, he can, if he's got more Cabal Therapies, I didn't see if more flipped over, but he can potentially take out anything he's scared about.
That is time in your round. Time in your round.
He did mill through the Dread Return, so he can potentially bring something out. But what does he have? The Dread Return is just the Flamekin Zealot?
Just Flamekin Zealot game 1. He might have something after boarding. After boarding, he has an Elish Norn, but that won't come in this matchup.
Right. His hand still has Unmask in it. So if he cares about any of those cards.
I mean, Yeah, he could go for the Tinker in case he has to say go, and then he can feel a lot safer.
Right, that Tinker is potentially scary because Lanigra could have something like a Nihil Spellbomb in his deck.
Right.
He could have, if Lanigra had a main deck card to hate on the Dredge deck, he could potentially, it would probably be an artifact he could potentially tinker it up, and that is exactly what Briscoe's worried about. Now, we have the deck list. We know Lanigra did not actually have a Tinker target that could kill the graveyard. But Briscoe's correct to be afraid of it.
Right, I haven't added up the damage. I don't know, maybe if he were to Tinker for Blightsteel, can he only attack for 18? I haven't actually figured that out.
Right. All right, so Briscoe says go. Lanigra's doing the sort of honorable thing of leaving his hand, the known cards in his hand face up.
Well, it's easy to do. It's easy to be honorable when you're 99% to lose, or 99% to win, I suppose. I mean, this is really.
Yeah, Briscoe did not make 20 power for what it's worth.
Yeah,
but
there he packs it.
Lanigra's done. He looks at the top three. There are no outs. It's going to take a turn or two for Briscoe to clean him up and deal the 20, but there's no way for Lanigra to stop it from happening. So there you go.
That's why
Vintage
people
Dredge, ladies and gentlemen.
That is why there's a segment of the vintage community that does not like Dredge, does not enjoy Dredge. But then there's another segment that thinks, wow, it's super cool that there's a Magic deck that operates on a completely different axis.
Right, exactly.
That I mean, you'll see after sideboarding, it's very, very different.
Yes.
For example, the Dredge deck might cast a spell. Although, to be fair, he did
cast Cabal Therapy.
He did cast Cabal Therapy.
He did not tap mana. He did not create mana that entire game.
He was threatening to cast a Dread Return. But after boarding can be very interesting. I mean, the Dredge deck really has to dilute itself after sideboarding.
Because it has to react to the answers.
So,
so start with Lanigra. You look at his sideboard, and 6 is kind of the standard number. 6 dedicated graveyard hate cards seems to be the standard. If you want to be able to fight Dredge, basically you have to. You saw from that game, Lanigra's not winning this matchup unless he gets hugely advantaged after sideboarding.
Right.
So he's got 3 Ravenous Trap, 3 Nihil Spellbomb, specifically dedicated to just wiping out the Dredge player's graveyard. And then he also has Pithing Needle that he'll bring in, and maybe Pyroclasm.
Right. I would imagine he'll bring in both of those because once you've hated them out,
you got to clean up the.
I think Matt Elias hinted at this yesterday. A lot of times, you keep what's a really terrible hand, like you mulligan to 5, you get your Tormod's Crypt, or in this case, your Spellbomb or your Pithing Needle. So you don't have much else.
Right.
So when they cast, 2 dorks and start coming over for 2, you're at risk. So it's nice to have the Pyroclasm to clean up, and just in case you don't lose the bridge from below and just off 1 Cabal Therapy, get 3 zombies kind of thing.
So we've got kind of the classic control deck with the classic sideboard. This is kind of how Vintage works. Now, how does Briscoe react to that? He knows that his opponent, he probably knows his opponent's the defending champion, right? He's going to be expecting the graveyard hate. What does he do about it?
So Briscoe, so he's on the draw, so he probably will not bring in the Chalice of the Voids that he has access to.
Okay.
His sideboard is 2 Ingot Chewer, 1 Elvish Norn, 2 City of Brass, a Surgical Extraction, 2 Firestorm, 2 Mindbreak Trap, 2 Nature's Claim, and 3 Chalice. Okay. Now, he probably won't be bringing in the Chalices because he's on the draw.
I mean, if he was playing first, he might
bring in the Chalices on the play because he knows that, well, he doesn't necessarily know, but Lanigra is kind of playing, he saw a Tinker.
Yep.
It's reasonable to think that he saw a Sensei's Divining Top. It's easy to think that Lanigra's deck is going to be heavily dependent on Moxen.
Sure.
Now, he's probably going to take out the Ley Lines of the Void. Even though Lanigra's playing like a Yawgmoth's Will deck, he needs to use that space on cards that destroy the hate cards. So Nature's Claim is probably coming in.
Yeah,
potentially Ingot Chewer. Because he's not sure. Now, Lanigra...
Most of the cards in the format that host graveyards are artifacts and or enchantments.
Right, Lanigra in this case is kind of interesting. He has Ravenous Trap, so he dodges some of that. But, Ingot Chewer kills a Pithing Needle.
Right. So does Nature's Claim. And Nature's Claim could hit a Ley Line if that was Lanigra's plan.
Right. So he's probably going to have to bring in some of this. I don't know. He probably has a standard plan for how many he brings in different matchups.
Right. He doesn't necessarily know what they are, right? The hate cards, they can be Nihil Spellbombs, they can be Ravenous Trap, they can be Ley Line of the Void.
So he's going to have to dilute his deck. Now, taking out the 4 Ley Lines is maybe how he chooses to do that.
Sure. That makes sense.
Which obviously helps. Once he starts taking out Dredgers, that's when he has the potential to kind of get bad draws.
Yeah, it's definitely easy with a deck like this to, after sideboarding, take out too much of what makes your deck good. But if you dilute the deck and take out the combo parts,
Right.
Now, maybe you have the answers to the hate cards, but if you can't actually do your thing,
right,
you
and when
make your deck worse.
And when your deck is very used to mulliganing, you mulligan to 5 and go to a Bizarre Baghdad. The fact that you need both that Nature's Claim and a City of Brass, it actually becomes difficult just to get that many cards in your hand.
Right, the combo is spell and mana to cast it.
Right, and then once you have to sort of not dredge for a turn because you have to hope to draw a land, then your deck becomes a lot slower.
Yeah, I think that looking at the sideboard, I think Briscoe Leyline for the 4 artifact removal. That might just be the plan.
He has to bring in the 2 City of Brass as well. But just to make sure he can cast the spells.
His main deck has, what, 2 cities, 4 Undiscovered Paradise?
Right, and he'll probably bring in the 2 cities. Other than that, Lanigra has to...
He's got 3 Artifact Hate in his main deck, too. He did 2 Nature's Claim and an Ancient Grudge main.
Yeah, he was somewhat pre-diluted. Lanigra's going to have to mulligan aggressively here.
Okay.
You either need to win on the first 2 turns or have hate.
Mulliganing is pretty interesting here, right? Briscoe's going to be mulliganing to find probably Bizarre. Ideally, he'd find Bizarre, an artifact removal spell, and another land.
His ideal hand is City of Brass or Undiscovered Paradise, plus Bizarre, plus 1 of the Nature's Claim spells.
And Lanigra, you think Lanigra needs to aggressively mulligan to Graveyard Hate? Just cannot keep a hand without Graveyard Hate?
Well, he can if it involves Tinker or Time Vault. Like, he needs to keep a hand that either has Graveyard Hate or can lock up the game by turn 2 or 3. He can take a... He knows that Briscoe's deck is going to be slightly slower after boarding, so he could risk a turn 3 kill kind of thing.
So something like Land Mox Tinker you would keep. That's kind of the worst hand you would keep. All right, that looks like a Mox, a Jace, a bunch of lands.
Is that a Mindbreak Trap? Or
it's not
Mindbreak Trap.
That's
Ravenous Trap?
Right?
Is that a black card in his hand?
It might be a Mindbreak Trap in the middle. I'm pretty sure it's Mystical Tutor, which can get Mindbreak Trap.
Not
Ravenous Trap. So that's probably a keeper. And they both keep. Briscoe's got...
So he kept the ley
lines and brings in the ley line. So that turns off any Yawgmoth's shenanigans off from Lanigra. Doesn't do a whole lot else. Not the most powerful effect, but it's there.
Yeah, maybe the fact that he knew Lanigra's deck from last year, he's assuming that he also has Snapcasters.
Oh, right. It turns off Snapcaster. So they both kept. There is a Bizarre on Briscoe's side, so that is definitely the turn 1 land he likes to play.
Lanigra only has access to 1 mental misstep, which means he's not going to go with the strategy that I used to employ, where you really can shut down the Dredge deck's ability to kill your hate cards.
All right, what are you mystical for here?
Well, he has a Mox.
Lanigra's going to mystical. He could get to Tinker.
So it looks like he's going to get Tinker because then he has Ravenous Trap backup, and that's really...
It's a pretty good plan.
A very good plan.
See the spell bombs that came in, they're all toward the bottom.
Yeah.
Pyroclasm did come in like you predicted. Yeah, he just went
past the Tinker.
Tinker's what he was... He paused on the Tinker. I mean, he's definitely thinking about the Tinker. I like your Tinker play. That seems correct to me, for whatever that's worth. Yeah.
Yep, there it is. So So one Ravenous Trap is usually enough when they only have one Bizarre Baghdad.
Remind everybody exactly how Ravenous Trap works.
Oh, so Ravenous Trap, well, why don't you actually read it so I don't mess this up?
Yeah, I'll look it up.
So Ravenous Trap is a sorcery, or an instant.
It's an instant. If an opponent had 3 or more cards put into his or her graveyard from anywhere this turn, you may pay it for 0. And what it does is exile all cards from the graveyard.
Right. So how many cards is it? 3?
Yeah. If 3 cards hit the yard, you can exile everything.
All right. So once they've used Bizarre Baghdad for their turn, it's a free Tormod's Crypt effect.
Right.
Whatever you want to call that effect. Costs 4 normally. So it's it's not a. It's a little bit trickier because the Dredgefire can, if they have 2 Bizarres, they play around it a little bit, but it's pretty good. And the bigger problem is it can be Cabal Therapy. I think that is the bigger risk of that card.
Fair, yeah, it's sitting in your hand rather than the board. All right, well, here's the Tinker play we were expecting. So Lanigra drew the Tinker that he'd mysticaled, he played a land, he played Mox Ruby, tinkers away Mox Ruby, and turns it into Blightstone Colossus.
Blightstone Colossus, a card that is a new, fairly new printing, but it's
it definitely upgraded the Tinker kills.
Never been played outside of Vintage, essentially. It's 11/11 infect.
Right, it takes 1 hit. 1 hit from that guy, you're dead to poison counters. Briscoe activates Bizarre.
So
has not had the chance to discard anything yet. So
he
this
gets
is
a
two real
second
draws.
Bazaar and a therapy.
And a
So now he has the tools he needs to play around.
I don't see a land.
Okay, so he can't cast therapy unless he just.
Yeah, I don't think he can therapy.
But he has some of the tools required to play around Ravenous Trap.
Sure. And he's thinking about what to discard here. Now, would you, if you're Marc, do you Ravenous Trap these three?
No, I don't think so.
Grave Troll, that's Bridge. Cabal Therapy?
There's no real reason to trap until you need to.
All right, so now
but because
Briscoe, during his upkeep, is going to activate Bazaar.
All right.
Second Therapy. A couple lands. A couple Serum Powders. Okay, now for the second draw off Bazaar, the Thug is the only Dredger in there. Finds a second Grave Troll and a Stinkweed.
There's an Archimedes, which is huge for him because now he can actually Cabal Therapy.
Didn't he? How many does Thug dredge for? Isn't that too many cards? I don't remember the dredge.
Looks like the judge is.
Yeah, he dredged too many, right?
So minor technical hiccup there. Hopefully, they'll be allowed to continue the game. Looks like it's going to be a warning and a shuffle. So this is interesting. Is he going to predict the possibility of a Ravenous Trap and Cabal Therapy before he dredges again?
Right. All right, so Narcomoeba triggers. This is the Bazaar. We're in the middle of resolving Bazaar. He's now drawn the 2 cards from Bazaar, and he owes us 3 discards.
I think he... Oh, right, you're correct.
Because we're in Briscoe's upkeep. He does this before his draw phase so that he can have more stuff to choose from when he gets to his draw phase. He's got to discard 3. He kind of has to decide he might want to keep a Grave Troll in order to have it after Ravenous Trap. But no, he's discarded the 3rd Grave Troll.
I think part of the problem
triggers and comes into play.
He's not necessarily,
now he goes to his draw phase.
He's not necessarily playing around Ravenous Trap.
No.
He might think that Lanigra has Tormod's Crypt, Grafdigger's Cage,
Spellbomb,
that kind of thing.
All right, so draw phase, he dredged the troll and filled more stuff into his yard. No new triggers, right? Still just a little Narcomoeba. So now that we're in his main phase, he has the option to Cabal Therapy, right?
Yes.
Sack the Narcomoeba for Cabal Therapy? So you think he should Cabal Therapy and name Ravenous Trap?
Well, no. I mean, I don't know if that's what he should do. That would be his best play, given that there's a Ravenous Trap in Lanigra's hand. But he has to win.
Yeah, how relevant is it that there's a Blightsteel Colossus over there?
Extremely relevant.
Right, Narcomoeba's a blocker.
I don't know how.
Not a good enough blocker, though.
Not a good
Trample.
enough blocker.
He needs 2 toughness, and then he can survive a turn.
I don't. We would have to work out. Does he think he can win this turn? If he wastes one of his creatures on Cabal Therapy, is he trying to just get?
Well, if he Cabal Therapies, he also the bridge gives him a 2/2, which is
Right.
enough to block Blightsteel for a turn.
True.
And only take 9 poison counters. Plays a second Bazaar,
But it's really, I think,
which is a land, which triggers the Geist to come back, and Bloodghast.
the real question is what's he playing around? Like he may. So
Right.
here it goes. Here's the trap.
Okay, so he played
So-
the land, which triggers the Bloodghast, and Lanigra said, "I don't want you to have those Bloodghast.
Right.
I've seen enough. I'm ready to pull the trigger on this trap and wipe out your graveyard," which is just going to work. Now, he can activate Bazaar as a response. That doesn't do anything. I guess it saves a Grave Troll into his hand, but he loses a bunch more cards. That's probably not the plan.
Well, right.
He discarded the Grave Troll again, right? So I don't think his hand has much ability to rebuild. And against a Blightsteel, like he doesn't have any time to rebuild. This is basically the game, right?
No, I mean he's going to get to Bazaar again, so he could get really lucky.
He's facing a Blightsteel. He's got to get 2 toughness into play.
Right, but he could mill, for example, with his next Bazaar.
Now, does he have any instant speed things to respond with? I mean, he's currently thinking. He could respond by activating Bazaar, but that doesn't help him any. So, right, Ravenous Trap resolves. All of the goodies that the Dredge deck has spent his entire game getting into the graveyard are gone. Bye-bye. Trap resolves. Now, Briscoe has to rebuild, and he has to rebuild facing a Blightsteel Colossus.
I mean, I believe he does have outs.
All right, well, he's going to Bazaar. He draws a Grave Troll, He's already played his land for the turn.
Yeah,
too,
he may
so.
not have outs. I'm sorry.
Like that Dark Blast is actually sort of an out because it could have shrunk to only take 9 poison, but he's already played his land for the turn, so he can't cast it. Discard Grave Troll, Grave Troll. Now, I think he's just dead to poison counters now. Because he's played his land for the turn. His hand is Dark Blast, Undiscovered Paradise, and a third card, but yeah, okay.
Yeah.
He's dead. Blightsteel Colossus is going to come over for 10 poison. Narcomoeba can only soak up 1 of it, and that is not good enough. Now we're on to game 3.
He did get an important piece of information. Now that he knows
He knows about Ravenous Trap.
Ravenous Trap's a big deal, because now he can therapy before he overextends.
Right. So he knows at least part of Lanigra's plan, and he's heading to the sideboard, just like you said. Now that he's on the play, give me those chalices.
Is that what he grabbed?
Yes, he went straight to the sideboard and straight to the Chalice of the Void. Totally makes sense. If he's on the play, if he just drops Chalice for 0, turns off all the Moxes in Lanigra's deck, like that just slows Lanigra down so much. We saw there, his Blightsteel Colossus required a Mox.
Yeah, it kills a lot of his. I mean, he can still tinker a Mox away, but now he needs.
How's he going to get into play?
Yeah, now he needs 3 lands.
Right.
It's turn 3.
He needs 3 lands and he needs an artifact that doesn't cost 0. Like Chalice is huge on the play if comes down on turn 1. And I don't know what's coming out. Probably the ley lines. Like I'm not sure leyline does much. I mean, it turns off Yawgmoth's Will and Snapcaster, but I feel like if the game gets to the point where Lanigra is Snapcastering or Yawgmoth's Willing,
I'm a little surprised he still had leyline in, given. I mean, I'm not a Dredge player. I've played against Dredge a lot. I've never played the deck.
Sure.
I'm a little surprised that given that you have to dilute your deck with things like Nature's Claim, I'm a little surprised that he bothered with the ley lines. Obviously, ley line can be really annoying for Lanigra, but
right.
It's not like he needs Yawgmoth's Will to win. I mean,
right.
But it's also possible he only had 1 ley line in. I don't know. He drew a second one.
No, we saw at least 2.
Yeah.
We saw at least 2.
But,
all right, who's favored here? It's game 3. Briscoe on the play, but Lanigra's got all the hate cards. This is vintage.
In my opinion, Lanigra is certainly positioned worse than the control decks I would play. But I usually play this style of deck when I played a lot of vintage. A lot of my decks had 4 Dark Confidants and Jason Mind Sculptor. Ravenous Trap, when your opponent knows about it, is a lot worse.
Okay.
He doesn't have access to a lot of mental missteps, so the Nature's Claims are very live.
Against his spell bombs.
I think he's a lot worse. So I usually felt really good against Dredge after boarding. I felt pretty good in the matchup.
You would lose game 1, but you felt like I can just win the 2 sideboarded games consistently.
Right, and and if you late in the tournament when if you're able to know your opponent's on Dredge, which often happens, and it's only a 200-person tournament. You can do a lot of scouting.
Sure.
So late in the tournament, you can mulligan even game 1. Like you mulliganed and hope to get turn 2 Tinker or turn 2 Time Vault.
Did you run a main deck Dredge hate card?
Never. I never did.
Okay. I don't either.
So I think that the Dredge player's in pretty good shape here. It's certainly not a given, but he's certainly not.
Feels like a fair fight. Let's see what happens. Lanigra, as we mentioned, he won this tournament last year, defending champion.
Very similar deck. I haven't looked at I haven't put the two lists side by side.
He basically just ran it back. I don't know if it's card for card identical, but it's at least close.
Did he play Library of Alexandria last year?
It's not like anything would have changed in the last year to add that card.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree. He's still got Lightning Bolt in his deck after boarding, which is interesting.
That hand's...
Is that his 1 mental misstep? So that's nice.
And it's got a Ravenous Trap, right?
Oh, so here's
Serum Powder.
Here's the Serum Powder mulligan. So I don't know if a lot of people... Serum Powder is basically a card that gives you a free mulligan to 7.
But those cards get removed from the game.
Correct. So he is losing a Narcomoeba and a Bridge from Below. But now he gets a free 7, and there's...
And it has a Bazaar.
Still has Leyline in his deck. I've never really built a Dredge deck and come up with a sideboarding plan. I'm surprised he has room for Chalices and Leylines after boarding.
Did he draw a Chalice? He did not, right? All right, so Bazaar. It's like the usual. He's had that turn 1 all 3 games, basically because he mulligans until he's got it.
And he hasn't had to go deep.
No, he has not. I don't think he's gone below 7 actually. All right.
Well, he had a
Scalding
virtual
Tarn.
7 this game, right?
Right.
Because of Serum Powder.
Scalding Tarn, Mox Jet, go. Yeah. Ken activates Bazaar. Draw 2, discard 3. Looks like Dark Blast and another Bazaar. He's got a Stinkweed Imp to discard. He's got a Thug to discard. And Bloodghast. All right, untap, upkeep. He's going to activate Bazaar. See if he gets any exciting. I mean, doing this on upkeep, the biggest reason to do it upkeep is Icarid. Right? If he finds an Icarid, he can end there. Speak of the devil.
But it's a little bit greedy because he could have played this in a way such that he wouldn't lose his Bloodghast to Ravenous Trap, right?
Right.
He could have
There's
just
an Archamoeba.
Well, I mean, he would have dredged for his draw phase, but
yeah, another Bloodghast. All right, so we're still on upkeep. He's going to finish resolving Bazaar. He has to discard 3 cards.
He could have waited to main phase Bazaar because now he's going to lose quite a bit to this.
You don't know your opponent has trap. You know he has it in his list. You don't know he has it in his hand.
Right, but the question is how much do you gain by
doing this on upkeep?
Doing it on upkeep.
You gain Icarid.
You do gain Icarid. But...
Does Icarid not trigger? Oh, you don't gain Icarid. My bad. It has to be there at the beginning of the upkeep to trigger. So Dread return, Cabal Therapy.
And he's still
another Stinkweed.
Yeah.
All right, now what does Ken do? He doesn't have a lot of ability to play around Ravenous Trap. I think his plan to beat Ravenous Trap here is hope he doesn't have it.
Well, he certainly, I mean, once he had a Bloodghast, he certainly could have chose to play around it. He could have just
gone to his main phase, play a land.
He could have just drawn
trigger
for a
the
turn,
Bloodghast,
given up 1 turn of dredging. Here it is.
Is a couple Bloodghasts really that powerful?
No, but it's
All right, well, he's played second Bazaar. He's pointing to the Bloodghast trigger, and he's clearly wants to find out. Are you going to Ravenous Trap me? Do you have it? Yes. Marc says, I do have it. Now, the big difference between this game and Game 2 is that when this happened in Game 2, Marc Lanigra had Blightstone Colossus in play on his side of the table when this happened. This game, sure, Ravenous Trap is clearly good. It's going to wipe out all the work that Briscoe has done so far, but Briscoe might have time to refill.
Right, but you have to remember that he did lose a little bit of juice with the serum powder.
Right. Yeah, his remove from game is adding up. He's now down a couple Bloodghasts. He's got a Dread return. How many Dread returns does he play? 2?
I believe just 2.
I think one of them is gone. I don't think the other one's gone. And Briscoe's got to refill. So nothing to dredge with this Bazaar, but he's going to get to draw 2, discard 3. And his hand does include a Stinkweed Imp.
So Lanigra's got the Pyroclasm in his hand. This could be interesting where if enough cards get removed from the game, where the Pyroclasm plan could end, make it so that Briscoe has no ways left to win.
Funny.
Unlikely, but possible.
All right, Bridge and Stinkweed head to the graveyard from that Bazaar. And I think Briscoe drew a Chalice. Interesting. Does he Chalice 0 here? I mean, Lanigra's played his Mox, right? Lanigra's had a turn. So Chalice 0 is not nearly as powerful, but he's not going to build up enough mana to Chalice anything else.
No.
You just Chalice 0 here, right? Blank any future Moxes that Lanigra might draw.
I believe so.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he does. So Chalice of the Void, it costs XX, and it means that all spells of commemorative mana cost X are countered. He's chosen X equals 0, so... Yep, you're done. Yep, Chalice resolves. And Marc's up. Draws a Soul Ring. So he's definitely got all the mana
he drew some fast mana that wasn't stopped by Chalice of the Void for 0. That's a...
Okay. What's he got? So he's got Bolt, Pyroclasm, Misstep, and...
Is that another trap?
Second trap? Is that second trap?
I think so. That's pretty... This is pretty nasty, actually. If he gets a lot of cards in the second trap and has Pyroclasm backup, Briscoe can end up with really nothing.
All right. Briscoe's upkeep. Activates Bazaar. Dredges a Stinkweed Imp. Finds plenty more.
There's the Flamekin Zealot. Did Lanigra just do the
yes.
Oh, I can't believe this.
I can't believe you found Flamekin Zealot.
I mean...
Yes, that's exactly what he did.
So there's the Cabal Therapy. We'll see if Ken decides I'm going to leave some cards
Discard
left in my
3.
library before I dredge
Yeah,
again.
Lanigra is definitely trying to convince him that he's got it. He just needs to go for it.
See, he's already.
Yeah,
see, that's what
Briscoe's
I'm
going to
talking
count his
about.
library.
He's
There's
like-
not a ton left.
he's really
Can we
worried
get
about
this
this.
count, Rashad?
He's really worried about losing.
It looked like, it looked like it was only 15, 20 cards, right? 16 cards left in his library.
Yeah, I can't.
So is he activating second Bazaar?
I
You know
just-
what? If I'm him, I think you kind of have to go for it. I don't think you can rebuild.
But-
I think
but-
the trap is already lethal.
But can't you really? I'm not. I don't know.
You're
his
gonna win
deck
with
list. I would
16
have
cards?
to really.
You have no... he doesn't have the Dread Return yet. So he needs to find the other Dread Return to even go for the Flamekin plan, right? I think you got to go all in here. I don't think you have any choice.
Yeah, it's 2 bridges.
You're gonna get second Ravenous Trap. You're gonna be down to 16 cards in your library, nothing in your graveyard. You really think he can win from there?
I'm not sure. I admit that I would really need to see what's left in the deck.
I'll admit I'm not sure either, but my intuition is that the second trap is already lethal, so
But
you
what
may
does
as well
he
go all
lose
in.
by therapy?
Well, what he loses, I guess he can go to his main phase and not do the second Bazaar. That's fair. I feel like the move all in plan is he's trying to find the second Dread Return so that he can get the Flamekin Zealot and win right now. Oh, he goes to trigger the Narcomoebas, and Marc Lanigra sits up, stretches. No, this was not in fact a losing slouch. I was just trying to trick you. I do have the Mind Break trap. Whack. Bye-bye all those cards.
Yeah, this is pretty nasty.
Yeah. Oh, Chalice doesn't counter
does
it,
not
right?
counter that.
It's CMC4. Even though it's free, it does not count as a 0-mana spell. Yeah, so Ravenous Trap removes all of those cards from the graveyard, and yeah, Ken just extends the hand. He does not have nearly enough left to recover. He's down to about 4 cards, one of which was the Dread Return, which he would have been able to find on his draw step.